Ever wondered how a few tomato plants could threaten an entire, perfect neighborhood? What if the smiling HOA president who preached community harmony secretly plotted to erase your backyard sanctuary? And how does a quiet man, constantly shamed and misunderstood, finally make the bully regret every fake smile she ever flashed? It was a Tuesday morning in Cedar Hollow, Missouri. The sun soft enough to turn the dew on my rose garden into scattered diamonds. I stood on the porch with coffee gone cold in my hand, watching that line of black SUVs crawl down my gravel drive like beetles heading straight for a feast. Behind them rolled a flatbed and a white van polished so bright the HOA seal caught the light like a cheap crown. The woman who stepped out first had rehearsed every move in front of a mirror. Vanessa Langley, HOA president. Chin high, smile tight enough to crack porcelain. Clipboard clutched like it was the deed to my soul. Mr. Ward, she called out, voice dripping fake sugar. By order of the Cedar Hollow Homeowners Association Compliance Division, we're taking possession of this property today. I didn't shout, didn't even raise an eyebrow. Just took one slow sip, set the mug on the railing, and reached for the red toolbox by the door. My fingers found the small rubber button hidden under the handle. I pressed it once and whispered, Vanguard. Stage 1. A soft click rippled through the fence line. Tiny cameras tucked inside old birdhouses swiveled. Green indicator lights flickered under the barn eaves. Somewhere near the gate a small motor hummed. My dog Rex, that stubborn shepherd with one ear always cocked, stood up from under the porch and trotted to his spot. Tail low, eyes calm as steel. Vanessa's smile wavered just a hair. Sir, please cooperate. This will go much faster if you do. I kept my voice even, almost polite. Ma'am, you set 1 foot past that gate without lawful authority, and every frame goes straight to the county, the state, and 3 hard drives you'll never find. You sure you want to test how deep that smile goes? Her eyes narrowed just enough to let the real Vanessa peek through the blazer. We have authority. Then show it, I said. She didn't. She just lifted 2 fingers like a queen ordering peasants. 4 men in matching polos hopped out carrying bolt cutters. That's when I pressed the second button and muttered, Vanguard. Stage 2 armed. The gate locked with a heavy metallic thud. Rex gave one bark that rolled across the field like distant thunder. The men hesitated. Vanessa didn't. She lifted her chin higher and snapped. Proceed. I'd hoped it would never come to this. But when someone tries to take what your hands and heart built, hope isn't a plan. Preparation is. I wasn't born here. Grew up 3 states over. Spent 12 years in the Army, keeping radios alive so other folks could come home safe. When I got out, I wanted silence and soil. Found these 26 acres outside Cedar Hollow, enough room for a farmhouse, a workshop, a small orchard, and that crooked but beloved wooden dock I built with my dad over the creek behind the barn. The land had history in it. You could feel it every time you turned the dirt. Neighbors were real people, retired teacher on one side, dairy farmer on the other. For years life was good, quiet mornings, long days, wind whispering through the cottonwoods. Then the flyers showed up smelling like perfume and new money. Welcome to Cedar Hollow Estates, a premier HOA community. The brochure showed perfect cul-de-sacs, manicured lawns, a clubhouse that looked like a bank. My property was drawn in faint gray lines, just touching their proposed boundary but not inside it. Gray always means trouble. I drove to their model home. A young guy in a blue blazer handed me the covenant binder with the confidence of someone who'd never mowed his own grass. Exciting times. Sir, developers annexing adjacent parcels for uniform community standards. I laughed once. Uniform standards? Fancy way of saying everyone's grass better be the same height. He smiled like I'd just confirmed scripture. Exactly. No unsightly vehicles. No non-compliant structures. And of course no agricultural activities that could be disruptive. Disruptive like growing food. I asked. He blinked. Like tractors and livestock. Sir, I thanked him, took the binder, and read it that night at my kitchen table. Every word was flypaper, pretty to look at, sticky with control. Approved paint colors only. Mailbox heights regulated. No metal roofs without permission. No trucks with logos. No vegetable gardens visible from the street. And right at the end, no agricultural activity incompatible with community expectations. My stomach turned. That meant me. I called my lawyer Elena, tough as barbed wire and twice as sharp. She looked at the papers and whistled. They can't just absorb you, but they'll try to argue public benefit. Paper is their weapon. You'll need armor. So I built some. Vanguard started as a joke with an old army buddy, but it turned serious fast. Hidden cameras, off-site backups, sensors under the dock, even a small generator that could run the whole property if they cut the line. You're paranoid, Elena said once. Maybe, I told her. But paranoia is just experience with a good memory. For months I stayed polite. Brought cookies to the first HOA meeting. Shook hands. Offered free honey from my hives. Most folks smiled and took the jar. Vanessa looked at me like I was a stain she couldn't scrub off her marble counter. It started small, letters about unsightly equipment and nuisance operations. Then orange flags appeared along my fence where her surveyor claimed the boundary should be. They were wrong by 50 feet, just enough to slice through my well and the dock that led to my back pasture. I pulled every flag up, tied them in a neat knot, and left them on her doorstep with a note, wrong yard. Enjoy the donuts. The next letter wasn't friendly. Emergency community action. Immediate possession pending safety review. They cited hazardous structures and community risk. My hands shook reading it. Elena told me not to panic until a judge signed something. Nobody touches a thing. Keep your cameras rolling and your coffee hot. I took her advice. 2 mornings later the convoy came. The same one that woke me with dust and diesel. The flatbed parked by my barn. The tow truck driver hooked up my old Chevy, the one my dad and I rebuilt the summer before he got sick. Vanessa stood by the hood flipping pages like a queen reviewing her spoils. Final notice. Mr. Ward. Today we enforce compliance. Final notice usually comes after one that works, I said lightly. Got a court order? This is our authorization, she said, waving glossy paper. That's stationary, I replied. A court order has a judge's name, not your logo. Her jaw twitched. Sir, do not interfere. She snapped her fingers. The men started forward. That's when Vanguard woke up for real. Speakers under the porch clicked on with my recorded voice. This property is under active recording. Please state your name and lawful authority. Rex growled low and steady. The men hesitated. Vanessa didn't. Remove the vehicle, she barked. The tow truck lurched forward, nudging my Chevy's bumper. I took one slow step closer. Ma'am, that truck is older than your subdivision. You push it 1 more inch, and you'll see how fast paper burns. Then came the sirens, steady, not screaming. Deputy Tate pulled up, stepped out, and took in the scene like a man walking into a movie halfway through. What's going on here? Vanessa thrust her papers at him. We're executing an emergency action. He read, frowned, and looked at me. You got documents? I handed him the folder Elena had told me to keep ready. Deed. Survey. Every letter. He flipped through, nodded once, and turned back to her. Ma'am, this isn't a court order. It's a flyer. Her mouth opened. No words came out. He raised a hand. Nobody touches anything else today. Understood. The tow truck shut off. The air went still. For about a week things quieted. I fixed the fence, worked the garden, pretended peace could last. But people like Vanessa don't retreat. They reload. It started with a call to the county inspector about water violations. Then one morning a rumble came from the back road. A yellow bulldozer crept along the tree line, escorted by a pickup marked Silver Creek Development Services. Vanessa stood by the creek, sunglasses reflecting my dock like she already owned it. It's only a safety improvement, she called out sweetly. That dock is a hazard. Hazard to who? I asked. To the community, she said, smiling like she'd just invented kindness. I pointed to the survey stake at my feet. Community stops right here. Her lawyer, a slick guy named Pierce, opened a briefcase like he was unveiling treasure. Under emergency provisions, we have authority to stabilize the structure. Authority from who? I asked. He tapped his pen. From the people who care about safety. The bulldozer engine growled. Deputy Tate. Who'd driven up again? shook his head. "Hold it," he shouted. The driver paused. The creek laughed softly against the pilings like it knew the truth. "Back it up," I said, "before that machine learns how to swim." The driver eased the dozer back. Vanessa folded her arms. "You can delay, Mr. Ward, but you can't win." "Maybe," I said, "but I sleep fine at night." A few days later, a man in a tie showed up sweating. "Service of process, emergency temporary restraining order." The paper said I was restrained from interfering with community safety measures on the contested dock. Pierce appeared on cue, smiling like a cat at the can opener. "Proceed with securing the unsafe structure." Deputy Tate read over my shoulder. "Least intrusive manner," he murmured. "That means no demolition." I nodded, clipped a body cam to my vest, and said, "Vanguard, timeline start." Then I stood right on my side of the line, hands behind my back. Camera blinking red. "You stay on your side. You do your least." The driver planted orange fencing 3 feet shy of the stake. He looked embarrassed. "Thank you," I told him. He frowned. "For what?" "For proving the line still matters." For a while it was almost peaceful. Birds. Wind. Rex napping in the shade. Mrs. Holloway from down the road dropped by with muffins and a warning. "They're talking about shutting your power off next." Sure enough, a bucket truck from county utilities rolled up the next day. The lineman climbed down. "Got a work order to disconnect your well power." "Sir." I smiled politely. "May I see the order?" He held it up. The signature line read V. Langley. Deputy Tate leaned over. "That's not a county form. That's a service request from a customer." The lineman frowned. "Pressure from upstairs." "Pressure ain't law," Tate replied. "You touch that meter and you're liable." The man hesitated, looked at Rex, then shook his head. "I'll make a call." Before he could, 3 white trucks appeared, one from the county recorder, one from the surveyor, and Elena's dusty green pickup. She jumped out before the tires stopped. "Nobody cuts anything," she yelled. Pierce laughed. "Counsel, you're late." She handed Tate 3 documents. Boundary map correction, recorder acknowledgement, and an emergency hearing order from Judge Moreno. 10 minutes on video. Pierce's grin faltered. Then, like a cherry on top, the lineman's tablet pinged. This disconnect order isn't for his well. It's for the HOA clubhouse." Vanessa's face went pale. Pierce swore under his breath. And that's when the bulldozer driver, maybe nerves, maybe pure cosmic justice, lowered his blade too far and scraped the dirt ramp. The dock groaned. Everyone froze. The wood moaned again, then cracked. The far end dipped into the creek, splashing muddy water over the bank. "Mrs. Holloway," gasped. Neighborhood kids on bikes started crying. I felt something twist inside me. That dock wasn't just lumber. It was my dad teaching me to drive nails straight. It was evenings fishing when the world was simple. It was memory made solid. "Shut it down," Tate barked. The engine died, but the damage was done. Half the dock hung limp like a broken arm. Elena whispered, "That's destruction of private property." I whispered back, "That's evidence." "Vanguard," I said softly. "Upload doc file." The speaker clicked. Uploading. The next hour was chaos wearing a paperwork suit. Vanessa paced. Pierce argued. Tate took statements. Neighbors gathered. Even the mail carrier stopped to film. Then Tate's radio crackled. Second petition filed. Eminent domain claim. Elena's eyes flashed. HOAs can't file eminent domain. That's government authority. Pierce just smiled. The community is evolving. Your property is essential to its harmony. Harmony. I laughed. You just dropped a bulldozer on my memories. The crowd murmured. That's when a tall man stepped forward, gray hair, doctor's badge still on his shirt. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" She stiffened. "Richard, not now. I helped write those bylaws," he said, voice carrying. They were meant to keep lawns tidy, not seize a man's home. Silence spread like rain. Even Pierce shut up. For a second, I saw real fear in her eyes, not of me, of losing the story she'd told herself about being right. But the quiet didn't last. 2 black SUVs rolled up and men in suits stepped out. "State inspectors," Pierce announced triumphantly. "Here to document violations." They walked the property, snapping photos of my barn, my hives, my greenhouse. One pointed, "Unpermitted agricultural hazard." That's when my bees decided they'd had enough. A low hum built from the hives, rising into a golden cloud that shimmered in the sun. The inspectors froze, swatting uselessly as the swarm surrounded them. People screamed, ducked, ran for cover. Pierce stumbled back, waving his briefcase like a fan. Through it all, I just stood there, stunned and half smiling. The bees weren't attacking, they were circling, forming a living curtain between the barn and the intruders like nature itself had chosen a side. Rex barked once. Proud. Tate muttered, "I'll be damned." Even Elena laughed. Guess the defense rests. 10 minutes later, Judge Moreno appeared on Elena's tablet. "What in God's name is going on out there?" Tate explained, calm and precise. Elena held the camera toward the broken dock. Pierce tried to talk. The judge cut him off with a glare that could melt concrete. So the HOA trespassed, destroyed private property, and filed a false eminent domain claim. "Yes, sir," Elena said. He rubbed his forehead. "Mr. Ward, you'll have your hearing in 72 hours. Until then, I'm issuing a restraining order against any further HOA activity on your land. No fences, no machinery, no power interference. Deputy, enforce it." Then he added, voice like gravel, "Mr. Pierce, if I find your filings misrepresented authority, I'll recommend sanctions." The screen went black. The crowd exhaled. Mrs. Holloway clapped once. "Well, that's that." I looked at the creek where the broken boards floated away and whispered, "Not yet." The protest that had started at the HOA clubhouse reached my road. 50 residents with signs. Some shouted, "Protect our property values." Others yelled, "Leave the farmer alone." 2 crowds. 1 noise. The chant changed. "Save the dock. Save the dock." It was chaos. But beautiful chaos. The kind that makes you believe people still know right from wrong when they see it up close. Vanessa stood at the edge of it all, trembling for the first time. She looked less like a president and more like a woman who'd lost the map of her own life. Pierce muttered something about liability and backed away, leaving her there in the noise she'd created. When the crowd finally quieted, Elena put a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You won." I shook my head. "No, I just survived." She smiled. "Sometimes that's the same thing." That night, after everyone left, I sat on the porch with Rex. The moonlight hit the broken dock, turning the shattered planks silver. I thought about rebuilding it stronger, but maybe I'd leave it half-ruined for a while as a reminder. Some things deserve their scars. A few days later, the county ruled in my favor. Full restitution. All legal costs covered. And the HOA barred from any contact for 5 years. The papers came with a note from Judge Moreno. Land is more than property. It's a promise. Vanessa resigned from the HOA a week later. Moved away quietly. Her house went up for sale. I heard she took a job 3 counties over. Maybe she learned something. Maybe not. The dock got rebuilt that fall. Neighbors came to help, Elena with her tools. Mrs. Holloway bringing pie. The kids hammering nails, crooked but proud. When we finished, we stood together watching the sunset burn gold through the trees. It wasn't just a dock anymore. It was proof that no piece of paper, no fake rule, no arrogant HOA president could take away the soul of a community that remembers how to stand up. Sometimes I still see a black SUV on the distant road and feel that old spark of anger. But then I look at Rex. Look at the bees drifting lazy over the clover. And I let it go. The world's full of Vanessas, loud, sure of their own goodness, blind to the harm they do. You can't outshout them, but you can outsmart them. And that's exactly what I did. Because justice isn't loud. It's patient. It's recorded. And when it finally arrives, it tastes sweeter than any HOA-approved honey. Look, folks, the real lesson here? Don't let a clipboard Karen with rules run your life. Stay quiet. Stay prepared. Record everything. And watch the mighty fall with a smirk. Justice tastes sweetest when served cold and filmed.